So this is where we get into active sin territory. This is where the punishments get way worse, and the sinners' crimes that they committed while on Earth are much more severe. First up is circle number 6 is heresy, for heretics, and basically they also refer to them as Epicureans, and basically they refer to them as individuals who believe that the soul dies with the body. The body and the soul both die at the same instance. So essentially atheism, essentially like there is no afterlife, there is no God, stuff like that. And so this is actually one of my favorite kind of punishments, just because it's really creative, but at the same time it's really freaking painful to think about this. But their punishment for being atheistic, basically believing that if the soul dies with the body, okay, then that's your punishment. So you die your physical body, and then your soul goes to hell, and your soul suffers the same fate as your body does. What do with your body? They bury it underground. Except they go the extra mile. They don't only just bury you underground in tombs. They also set you on fire. I think just for good measure, really. It's just like, okay, well, your earth body got buried, so your soul will get buried. Ah, what the heck, we'll light you on fire too. It's hell. It's kind of what we do down here. So, yeah, that's just, I mean, it's one of the more painful ones to think about, but at the same time, it's just really creative when I read it. It's probably one of my favorite circles, and that makes me seem kind of masochistic, but that's just how I looked at it. So, when Dante and Virgil are walking through here, I guess maybe it's because of Virgil, or maybe because of just the whole concept of their pilgrimage. Some of the bodies are actually lifted out of the tombs so they can talk and communicate with Dante and Virgil. And this is where it gets very interesting, because Dante actually meets an individual. Let me pull up his name here. Oh dear God, I'm not going to be able to pronounce that. He meets a guy. There's no way I could even become close to pronouncing that. It's too Italian. But he meets a guy who's actually somebody he knows. This guy died in the year 1283, and the Divine Comedy takes place in 1300. So this is a guy, he's the father of one of Dante's friends. But even so, he's somebody that he knows. And I always just thought, how awkward would that have to be? To like Dante's walking through this pilgrimage in hell, and he actually comes across people that he actually personally knows. That has to be kind of awkward. Just like, hey buddy, what's up? I'm like, oh, hey, you're in hell too. I'm like, no, I'm just passing through. So what's going on with you? He's like, well, I was a heretic, so I get to spend the rest of eternity in this flaming tomb. Kind of happy that you're here. Actually, I get to talk with you. Well, you know, it's been nice knowing you. See you, man. Okay, see ya. See ya. Have fun at Circle 7. I'm gonna go back into this tomb and you know, shake around in that on fire and blazing agony for all eternity. You know, so and that's also a key too, where they go into these tombs, and upon entering this area with this, it's basically a mass graveyard. Upon entering this graveyard, Dante and Virgil witness like all the people are like banging on their coffins and just like, you know, like screaming out in pain. So yeah, that's Circle 6. That's heresy. So now we get into the lower circles 7, 8, and 9, and like I said in the last video, circles 7, 8, and 9 all have different sub-levels to them. So I'm probably going to just be able to cover the 7th circle in this video, which is violence, and circle 8 is probably going to have to be its own separate thing, and then circle 9 could probably be also its own separate thing just to round out hell, because I don't want to start purgatory. I don't want to end hell and start purgatory in the same video. So, alright, so here we go with circle number 7, violence. There are 3 sections. There are basically 3 rings that make up the 7th circle of violence. There's the outer ring that deals with the violence that you commit to others. There's the middle ring that deals with violence that you committed to yourself. And finally, there's the inner ring, who deals with violence you committed to God. I shouldn't say circle, because the circles are in hell. These are rings. There's a difference. Alright, so first up is the outer ring of the 7th circle, and this is where people committed murder. And I know what you're probably thinking. This is where all the murderers go. You're probably thinking, when you ask somebody, like, what's the worst sin you can commit as a human being? What's the ultimate worst sin that would, like, if hell did have levels, what would merit you being sent to the very bottom? And most people would probably say murder. I mean, there's probably going to be some, I mean, I'm sure somebody would throw in maybe suicide, maybe an act of, you know, I know even an act of terrorism would also be murder in a sense. So, Yeah, most people would probably say murder, and that is not true. Actually, murderers get sent to the 7th circle. They're not even... I mean, they're in the lower echelon of hell. They're in active sin territory, but they're not at the very bottom. In fact, they're actually at the very top of the 7th circle, so that's just very interesting when I read that the murderers would not even be punished that much. But their punishment's still pretty damn severe. Basically, the ironic twist here is because they spilled the blood of their fellow man, they spilled the blood of their neighbors and their fellow humans. Because they spilt their blood, they have to spend the rest of eternity bathing in boiling hot flaming blood. I know, right? And it's also kind of transitory, because transitory, I don't know if that's the word I'm looking for, but whatever. They throw this concept in where the more you're submerged, depending on how much blood, how many people you killed. So if you only killed a couple of people, you're only up to like your knees. If you killed a whole bunch of people, you get like completely submerged. As a perfect example, Alexander the Great is in the outer ring of the 7th circle. Alexander the Great, who I'm pretty sure you guys have probably heard of him. Anyway, he kind of massacred thousands under his reign, so he's buried to right above his eyebrows. Up to his eyebrows. That's like almost... I don't even know how Dante would even be able to... Oh my god! Those are the eyebrows of Alexander the Great! You know, I don't know how he would even be able to know that that's Alexander the Great, but he's buried up to here in boiling hot flaming blood for the rest of everything. And just to add something else, the 7th circle, the outer ring, has its own specific guardians, which are the centaurs. And the centaurs, their job is basically go around the bank of this massive bloody river with their bows and arrows drawn. And anybody that tries to get up higher out of the flaming blood than they're allowed to, like if like Alexander the Great would try to go up from eyebrow down to nose, the centaurs are there. They're watching you, and if you try to go up higher than you're allowed, they will just, you know, rain you down with arrows to like force you back into the bloody lake. So yeah, that's what the centaurs are for. In fact, I forgot to mention that I can't believe I forgot him because he's such an awesome guy. But the guardian of the 7th circle in general, like the whole circle, is the Minotaur. So here's finally where the Minotaur comes into play, and he's, you know, as awesome as you would always imagine, you know, awesome, half man, half bull guy wielding a massive battle axe. So Minotaur, great individual in Roman mythology, if I do say so myself. Probably one of my favorites. Okay, so now on to the middle ring of the 7th circle, and this deals with violence that you committed towards yourself. And this is where it gets pretty weird. Bear with me on this, because you probably think I'm screwing with you here, but you just follow me through on this, okay? So, violence to yourself, probably the first thing that pops into mind is suicide. So this is where people that go that committed suicide. And because basically they squandered their life. Life is like the ultimate gift that they were given by God just to exist on this planet. And they squandered that. They squandered that right. So because they wasted their life, or they just like treated their bodies as, you know, nothing essentially. So because of that, they get turned into trees. Oh, right there. I know that look. If you have not read the Inferno, you think I'm bullshitting you right now. They get turned into trees. I told you this was weird. Okay, so yeah, you get turned into. It's not exactly a perfect tree. It's kind of like a warped tree where the tree is kind of showing kind of visages of you as your appearance, like your face is on there. And while walking through this like massive forest, Dante even grabs a part of the branch, and he breaks it off, and like blood begins to pour from the branch. So yeah, that's the deal with people that commit suicide. And to add to the torture, just kind of like with the heresy thing, to add to the torture, it's not just enough being a tree. Like, in fact, you're rooted to the ground permanently. You can't move. You can't even really do anything. You can't. I don't even think they can speak. I don't know. They might be able to speak, but they can't do anything. They're rooted to the ground forever. So to add to this, harpies from Greek mythology, the harpy bird ladies, come down and pick at you. Pick at your bark, pick at your leaves, pick at your like, that's just so freaking random, right? Like if you go up to somebody and ask, like, what would happen if you committed suicide and you go to hell? What do you think your punishment will be? They'll probably say something like, oh, well, you'll probably be, like, tortured in fire or lava. He's like, no. You get turned into a tree and then pecked at by bird people. There's another section, it's kind of a smaller subsection, but there's a subsection to the subsection in the section, which is in itself a subsection of hell. In the middle ring, along with suicides, there's also the propagators. These are the people that, kind of like the exact opposite of greed, whereas the greedy, when they like stockpile money and wealth and property and all this stuff, they had an overabundance of it. These are the people that are propagators. These are the people that destroyed that, who squandered. They're sometimes referred to as the squanderers, people that destroyed money, destroyed property. So because they were squanderers, because they didn't have any care for the things that you needed to do in life, like you need money to survive, you need a house to survive. They didn't apparently like respect that rule good enough. So their punishment's kind of light when compared to turning into a tree. They get just chased by dogs. So that's kind of a phoned-in punishment there. I can imagine when they were designing hell, they were just like, okay, so if you kill yourself, you get turned into a tree. Oh crap, we need something for the propagators. Does anyone have any ideas for the propagators? Chased by dogs? Okay, that's kind of whatever. I don't care. We have to keep moving on. There's like 9 circles on this freaking thing. We have to keep going. So, okay, chased by dogs. Next. Alright, so now we get to the final ring of the 7th circle, the inner ring. This is for people that have committed violence against God, or the blasphemers, as you would. The punishment in the inner ring is kind of basically simple as well. Basically, there's this massive, expansive wasteland, or desert, and it's like boiling hot on this desert. And there's different sections to the blasphemers. There's the sodomites, and the usurpers, and I think there's something else too. But anyway, they have to deal with the same kind of fate as Sodom and Gomorrah. If you're aware of the story of Sodom and Gomorrah, where pretty much they have these 2 cities that are just brimming with every single sin you can imagine. So God's like basically destroyed them with like a fire, like a hail of fire, like rained down on these cities and destroyed Sodom and Gomorrah. Kind of the same deal here, where massive, expansive desert, and the sinners are kind of just wandering around the desert, kind of like zombies, and they're just like walking around in no particular direction, and they're just getting forever rained on by fire, essentially. I think there is kind of a rule here where like the sodomites are the ones that are allowed to walk around, and the usurpers are the ones that lay on the ground. I think there's some kind, I might have gotten that backwards. There's some kind of difference between, there's some that are allowed to sit and some that are allowed to stand up, and they just have to deal with the, the fire. And that's it. There's also a river of blood running through this one as well. And also here we also meet somebody else that Dante actually personally knows, and it's even worse in this one, in this case. As opposed to the other guy that was just like a friend of him, he meets a guy named Brunetto Latini here, who Brunetto was actually Dante's mentor in life. Now, you gotta really sit back and think to yourself here, where you're in hell, you're in the lower section of hell, and you meet your mentor there. The guy that taught you about life and all these life lessons. He's in hell. Yeah. You might want to rethink your stances there. I don't know. Can someone, maybe someone would know about this. I don't even know if it's ever discussed, but it's fairly like obvious that if Dante never met Virgil, never went on this pilgrimage, he would have ended up in hell too, because pretty much everybody he knew was in hell. And at the beginning of the story, when he was in the forest, he was always like immersed in sin. He's like, oh god, I'm going to hell, what the hell am I going to do, what the hell has become of my life, I'm totally screwed. So he probably would have ended up in hell anyway, but I don't know if it's ever been discussed what level of hell he would have been sent to. So that's a thing maybe you guys know. I don't know if it's ever even mentioned in the series. But so yeah, he meets his mentor here, and he's nice to him. He's like, oh yeah, dude, you taught me all this stuff, so thanks for that. Okay, I'm gonna get going now, because this is kind of awkward. You're in hell. So yeah, that was the 7th circle of hell. Now, next is the 8th circle, which is fraud. And we're not gonna get into it in this video, because like I said before, it's 10 levels to the 8th circle, whereas in the 7th circle they were called rings, and the 8th circle they're called bolgias. They're kind of like ditches in the ground. I'll get to it. But the main thing we have to get to here, and the last thing I'm going to discuss in this video, is how they get to the 8th circle. Now, I'll throw up another map here like I did last time. Here is basically a map of the last 3 circles of hell. There's 7, 8, and 9. And as you probably notice, there's major vertical differences in each one. Like, in between the 7th and the 8th circle, there's like a massive ditch, and even from the 9th one, there's even more of a smaller ditch. So basically, they can't just descend anymore, because I think there was like a staircase or a ledge to go down from 6 to 7, but from 7 to 8, it's just sheer rock. It's just a straight down path. So basically, they meet this kind of man slash lizard slash bird thing, and his name's called Giron. And they hop on top of Giron, and he flies down this waterfall in like this spiral pattern, like surrounding this waterfall. And he arrives and he takes them to the 8th Bolgia. So that's to the first Bolgia of the 8th circle. So that's how they get down. And they're also going to need another method when they get to the bottom of the to the 8th circle. They have to have another method to go down to the bottom level of hell in general, the 9th circle. So we'll get to that later on. But I just want to mention that's how they traverse the method of how they get down further. So that was the 6th and 7th circles of hell. Next time we'll probably be discussing the 8th circle and just in its own separate video, because there's lots of subcategories involving fraud, apparently, and more than I would have thought. And then finally we have the 9th circle, which is treachery. Treachery. Oh, that's an awesome. I can play the soundtrack from Bleach on that level. That's like perfect for me to play that. Okay, thanks everybody. See you guys.